Safety of Water, presented by David L.A. Rosson, 123foodhandler.com. This training presentation was developed specifically to assist seafood and juice processors meet the regulatory requirements of 21 CFR 120 for juice processors and 21 CFR 123 for fish and fishery product processors. Sanitation element number 1, safety of water. Safety of water that comes into contact with food or food contact surfaces, including utensils, gloves, and outer garments. 21 CFR 123.11b1 and 21 CFR 126a1 cite this. In order to meet the requirement of 21 CFR 120 and 123, processors are required to comply with Current Good Manufacturing Practices Regulation, or 21 CFR 117, Subpart B. Adhering to the requirements of 21 CFR 117, Subpart B, with respect to water, it will help a processing facility meet the requirements of 21 CFR 120 and 123 for the safety of water. As of September 17th, 2018, all juice processors and fish and fishery product processors are required to be in compliance with 21 CFR 117 Subpart B. So, what is a definition of a processor for fish or juice? A processor means any person engaged in commercial, custom, or institutional processing either in the United States or in a foreign country. Processing includes any person engaged in the production of foods that are used in market or consumer tests. And you can see I've inserted the regulations for both fish and juice. So I'd like to take a look at 3 specific areas in 21 CFR 117 Subpart B to help juice and fish and fishery product processors meet the safety of water requirement. One area in 21 CFR 117 Subpart B is the water supply, which is 117.37a. Another area is plumbing, which is covered in 2 areas, 117.37b3 and b5. And then another area would be in our processes and controls, and that's covered in a couple areas as well, 11780A1 and 11780C16. (11737A). Water supply must be derived from an adequate source and adequate for operations. So, what are some common sources for our water supply used in seafood and juice processing? Well, the most common would be a municipal source, followed by a private well, and seawater is commonly used in the seafood industry. So again, the most common water source is municipalities. And the good thing about municipalities is they have high chemical and microbiological standards. The water has been purified or treated. And, of course, it's been tested on a predetermined schedule to meet EPA requirements which is disclosed on the next slide. Something that you or management should do is ensure that the municipality you're working with is meeting EPA national drinking water standards. You can download a copy of your municipality's water safety report through its website. Take a look at that as soon as you can. So as you can see on the slide here, there are specific standards for total coliform, fecal coliform, E. coli, viruses, and parasites. So these are some important standards. Ensure your municipality are meeting these standards by looking at the annual water report. So you remember, as I mentioned earlier, another common source of water would be well water. So let's take a look at some of the potential failures with well water. So floods or heavy rains can impact the safety of well water. If the location of the well is too close to cesspools, septic tanks, or other agricultural sites, or areas that are associated with drainage, and then the integrity of the well itself could be compromised, cracked, or improperly sealed, which would allow for chemical or microbiological contamination of the well water. So if your facility is on a well, you're going to want to do a monitoring program. You should conduct it before any initial use or new service, and make sure at least twice a year or semi-annual basis that you conduct a series of testing to ensure that the water from the well meets EPA standards. So if you have evidence or have reason to believe that the source has been contaminated or may be contaminated, of course, you will monitor the safety of the water prior to that. So you remember this training was developed for both seafood and juice processors. So it's common in the seafood industry to use seawater. So we want to make sure that all water that is used is safe, including seawater. So monitoring for seawater safety should be conducted more frequently than land-based, municipal, or private sources. The guidelines should be in accordance with state requirements or local requirements, making sure that you're working with labs that are capable of helping you to determine if the water meets those requirements if you're using seawater. Now we know the water we received is safe. We have to ensure that the water we transfer throughout the building using our plumbing is also kept safe. Specifically, being mindful to prevent contamination from the plumbing, as specified in 11737B3, as well as causing contamination of the water from backflow or cross connections. Plumbing. Be mindful of the plumbing, the delivery of the water throughout your facility. So let's look at that a little bit more. Some common causes of in-plant water contamination will come via cross connection, which is a physical link between safe and unsafe water, or will come via backflow or back siphonage, which is created when one type of equipment uses a lot more pressure than sucks water to that equipment and will then suck contaminated water from a hose or from a pump or some other type of equipment back into the water. So back pressure can be the source of contamination when potable water is connected to a system operating under high pressure. So we got to be mindful of these areas. So one more time, cross connection is the physical link between safe water and dirty water. Could come from a drain, a sewer, or other wastewater sources. Backflow is the actual reverse flow of contaminants through a cross connection, where we have then again let the potable water supply become contaminated via this backflow. Backflows can be prevented or controlled. The best way it won't break would be an air gap, creating a physical gap between the rim of a sink and a faucet, or uh, we can install what's called a vacuum breaker. However, those do fail and have failed. So vacuum breaker would feel the vacuum in the line and then collapse the line, not allowing backflow. Or we can install check valves throughout the system. So these are ways to prevent backflow. So you can see here we have an image where we have an air gap at the drain and the floor, as well as the rim of the sink and the faucet. And then on the left we have an image where there is a vacuum breaker installed on that line. So these are a couple ways again to remind you we got to prevent backflow, where we have a physical link between unsafe water and safe water. So we also have to be mindful of the water we use for washing, rinsing, conveying food, and making ice. As you can see here, those are covered in 21 CFR 117. 11780A1 covers my washing water, my rinsing water, my conveying of food water. And then 11780C 16 covers ice. How's my ice? I'm sure you probably know, but water is one of the most important components or things we use within our establishments. It's used as an ingredient in our products. It's used to convey or transport products sometimes. It's used to wash foods, to make ice and glazes. It's used to clean and sanitize facilities and utensils and containers and equipment. It's used for drinking and, of course, for washing hands. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, our municipality was required to deliver safe water to us, and we are required to maintain that water safety within our facility. Of course, again, meeting these national drinking water standards. So be mindful of your plumbing. Be mindful of your in-house use of hoses, equipment for the transfer or backflow of water as a way of minimizing the contamination of water. EPA national water regulations, that's something you should be familiar with. Sanitation element number 1, safety of the water. Hopefully this presentation is giving you an idea of the potential failures or modes of failure with regard to water. Could be a failure from the municipality or the delivery of the water. It could be a failure in-house in our use of the water. Regardless, it's our job to maintain the water that comes in contact with food or food contact surfaces. And it's explicitly covered by the regulations for both fish and fishery products as well as juice products. So be mindful of your water and its safety. So let's wrap this thing up. It's going to be your job to make sure you have safe water. Find ways to do that. I've introduced you to the regulatory requirement within the juice and seafood, as well as tied that into the good manufacturing practice regulation. So just be mindful. Your water is required to be safe. Check your supply, check your plumbing, and how you're using it during processing, making of ice, washing hands, of course, safety of water. So this concludes the training on the safety of water. Please complete the quiz and review all attachments. Thank you for choosing 123 Food Handler for your safety of water training.